One night in the forest, a deer is running desperately, as if being chased by something or someone. Nearby, her baby, called Sang Cancel, is playing in the woods when he suddenly sees his mother coming, with several wounds on her body. She tells the baby to run and the two of them make their way up a hill, with the mother deer pushing Sang, who lands safely on the other side. Unfortunately for her, a hand covered in shadows pulls her back and she disappears, leaving the baby alone. Sang cries for the loss of his mother, but several evil eyes appear around him and he is forced to flee. Years pass and the baby becomes a very fast deer, managing to escape even a tiger, which tries to devour him, but falls into a trap and is hit by a tree trunk. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, a group of animals take the opportunity to swim in the lake around a beautiful waterfall. However, the fun is interrupted by a huge elephant called Gaja, who declares that he is the new owner of the lake and tells everyone to leave. As the waterfall is the main source of water, the forest animals ask for help when they find Sang. They tell him the whole situation and ask for his help in driving Gaja away, because in return, the deer will have all the food and comfort at once. Sang accepts the mission, and together with the gang, he goes to talk to Gaja and orders the elephant to leave the lake in peace. However, this only makes Gaja angry, and with his trunk, he sucks up all the water in the lake and fires a powerful blast at the animals. Using a leaf as a shield, Sang manages to block the attack, but the rest of the group become afraid of the elephant and leave him alone. Nevertheless, the little deer challenges Gaja to a showdown, and if he wins, the elephant must leave the lake. However, if Sang is defeated, the whole jungle will belong to Gaja and the animals will have to obey his every command. Before accepting the challenge, Sang is summoned by the herd, who warn the deer not to do this, as no animal in the forest has managed to defeat the elephant. Nevertheless, Sang tries to come up with a plan when he sees a group of ants walking towards the anthill. The little deer then goes there and asks for the help of Semet, the queen of the ants, who agrees to do this in order to give the lake back to the animals. She then confronts Gaja, who at first laughs at the ant, but then accepts the challenge and makes a huge leap towards the clouds. Then the elephant begins to fall rapidly, as if it were a torpedo launched at full speed. Still, the ant queen is undeterred, and with the help of one of her soldiers, she launches herself in the opposite direction. The two opponents are about to collide, but Semet disappears into thin air and the elephant crashes into the forest, causing a huge explosion. Afterwards, Gaja believes that the ant didn't even touch him and celebrates his victory. However, this was all part of Sang's plan, because before they collided, the queen entered the elephant's trunk and began to sting inside it. The elephant becomes desperate and tries to get rid of the ant, but ends up crashing into the rocks and falls to the ground, with no strength left to fight. With this victory, the animals can return to the lake and everyone sings and dances, thanks to Sang's ingenious plan. After the celebration, the young deer goes for another walk in the forest, when he is hit on the head by his master, the squirrel Tupai. He warns his apprentice not to get too cocky, as there will always be a new threat lurking in the forest. Sang thanks him for the advice, but tells him that thanks to his training, he has managed to solve all the problems in the forest. However, he still hasn't discovered the mystery of what happened to his mother and only remembers the shadows that took her away that tragic night. The little deer wants to know the whole truth, but his mother has disappeared into the mountains beyond the forest. The deer doesn't know how to get there, but a crow called Gogik appears on the scene, claiming to know the way there. Tupai knows that the crow can't be trusted and advises Sang to stay in the forest, but the deer has already made up his mind and starts collecting items for the journey. Seeing that Sang is determined, the squirrel takes the deer's supplies and challenges him to a duel to see if he's ready. The little deer accepts, but instead of a fight, the two begin a dance-off. The master believes his victory is certain, but in a moment of distraction, Sang takes back his supplies. With everything ready, Gogik reappears and says that he will be waiting for Sang by the river. However, Tupai continues to doubt the raven's real intentions, and using his staff, he pins the bird against the branch of a tree and threatens him if he betrays his apprentice. But Sang asks his master to leave Gogik alone, so Tupai lets the bird go and wishes the little deer good luck. Finally, Sang begins his journey towards the mountains, but after hours of walking, he is surprised by a huge snake called Alar. With a lunge, it tries to devour the deer alive, but Sang manages to dodge it and runs away, only to meet up with the tiger Harimau. The two predators start arguing about who will get the prey and Sang seizes the opportunity to escape. To his misfortune, the deer ends up stepping on a bone, drawing the attention of Alar and Harimau. Sang then runs as fast as he can, but ends up being cornered on a rock and begs for mercy, saying that he is on a mission to rescue his mother. Neither of them takes him at his word and they slowly advance towards him. Fortunately, the little deer sees another trap set up, and when he triggers the mechanism, a huge tree trunk is thrown, hitting the Bengal tiger squarely. Without her competitor, Alar sets off to devour the deer alone, but Sang sees a bamboo forest and jumps between its trunks. The snake doesn't give up and makes several attacks on the deer, but just as it was about to reach it, Alar realizes that it has become trapped between the bamboos. Once again, the deer has used its wits to escape danger and continues on its journey, until it meets Gagik again. He warns him that they are close to the mountains, but they have to cross the lake ahead, protected by the alligators and their leader, the crocodile Raja. Despite the danger, Sang reveals himself to the gang, and when he sees the deer, the crocodile doesn't think twice and lunges at him. However, with a stroke of luck, Sang throws a branch into the crocodile's mouth, which can no longer close its jaw and is left bewildered. Sang then invents a story, saying that he needs to cross the lake and has brought a message from the crocodile king Suleiman. He goes on to say that the king has invited all the alligators to a ceremony in the forest, which only makes Raja even happier. He then orders the alligators to stand in the river to act as a bridge for the deer, but warns him that if this message is false, he will regret it. Sang assures him that everything is true and finally crosses the river, meeting Gagik on the other side. He is surprised that the deer has made it that far, but warns him that in the mountains lives one of the most feared beings in the forest, Prakasa, the great eagle. Nevertheless, Sang continues to climb the mountain, until at incredible speed, the eagle appears in front of him. Seeing the little deer, Prakasa begins to mock him, and with just a flutter of his wings, he scatters animal bones, forming a fence around Sang. The deer is not intimidated and says that he is looking for a monster made of shadows, which eliminated his mother years ago. On hearing this, Prakasa immediately recognizes who he is talking about and tells him that the person responsible for eliminating his mother is very close by. Just then, a predator shrouded in darkness appears and reveals itself to be Kumbang, a huge panther that eliminated Sang's mother in the past. Even in fear, the deer is seized by an uncontrollable rage and sets out to attack Kumbang. However, one of his henchmen arrests Sang, who soon becomes the butt of jokes among everyone, including Prakasa and his friend Gagik. However, to the crow's misfortune, the same panther attacks him by surprise and smashes him against the wall, eliminating the animal. Faced with this unexpected scene, Prakasa is overcome with fury and lunges at Kumbang, clamping down on his neck with his sharp claws. He asks why his friend has been eliminated and warns the panther to remember their agreement to rule the whole forest. However, the panther has other plans, and with its paw, it breaks the huge eagle's fingers and throws it at the other panthers, who begin to devour it. However, the eagle doesn't give up and advances against them, starting a terrible battle. Having a common enemy, Sang decides to help Prakasa and hits the panthers with his kicks. Kumbang also joins the battle and attacks Prakasa, with the two of them vying to decide who will rule the forest. At the same time, Sang is surrendered by one of the panthers and is about to be finished off, when Tupai appears by surprise and saves his pupil by striking the animal with his staff. The squirrel master then uses his staff to provoke a sandstorm and flees with Sang. Minutes later, they both hide in a safe place and Tupai bandages the deer's wounds. Shortly afterwards, an orangutan appears on the scene, seriously injured, and tells him that he has been victimized by Kumbang. Seeing the little deer, he remembers Sang's mother and tells him that she was a great leader for the forest animals. At that time, everyone lived in harmony, until one day he saw Kumbang trapped between several rocks. Desperate, he asked for help, and at first the deer refused because she knew he would attack the other animals in the forest. However, when the island's volcano erupted, the deer took pity on him and helped him escape. Unfortunately, as soon as he was freed, Kumbang betrayed her, striking her with his sharp claws until he finally eliminated her in front of her own son. Sang cries when he learns of his mother's unjust fate, and in his last breath, the orangutan asks Sang to avenge him and bring peace to the forest. The next morning, the little deer and his master hold a flower funeral for the orangutan and Sang is more willing than ever to face Kumbang. Tupai, however, knows that the panthers are very powerful and will not be defeated by brute force alone. Sang then decides to gather all the animals in the forest to fight together, but before he can do anything, Kumbang and his panthers appear and find the rabbit's nest. Sang and Tupai rush to help them, while the rabbits do what they can to face the huge predators. They arm themselves with spears and even a gun that shoots seeds, but the panthers manage to dodge their attacks and fight back with scratches and bites. Little by little, the whole group is destroyed and some try to escape through tunnels in the ground, but they are also captured. Finally, Kumbang uses his fingernails to create a spark and throws it towards the tree, causing a fire that engulfs the entire forest. Minutes later, Sang arrives on the scene, but it's too late and most of the rabbits are lying lifeless on the ground. Despite this terrible scenario, the little deer finds his friend, the rabbit Arnab, who narrowly managed to escape the destruction. After recounting what had happened, Arnab asks for Sang's help in confronting the panthers. Shortly afterwards, Tupai appears and says that he saw Kumbang and his gang go to the river to take over the alligators' territory. The little deer then hurries to get there, as he can ask for Raja's help to face a common enemy. However, when they get there, Sang and his friends see the alligators being humiliatingly defeated by Kumbang and his panthers, who attack and devour their prey. Raja challenges the leader of the panthers to a fight in the lake, and the winner will be the new owner of the territory. Confident in his ability, Kumbang accepts, but as he enters the water, the crocodile jumps on his back and bites his neck, taking him to the bottom of the lake. Raja is about to defeat his opponent underwater, but Kumbang uses his claws again and gouges out the crocodile's eyes. Thanks to this, the panther manages to break free, but the crocodile strikes back with a blow from its tail, knocking Kumbang back to the surface. Raja then tries to take another bite out of the panther, but it stops his attack with its paws and throws him to the ground. Not satisfied, Kumbang jumps on top of the crocodile, and with his sharp nails, scratches Raja's back, who screams in pain. Furious, he tries to land another blow, but the panther bites him on the neck and starts scratching his belly. In a last-ditch effort, Raja uses his spinning blow and tries to take the fight back to the bottom of the lake, but shortly afterwards, the panther lifts him back to the surface and throws him against a rock. Raja tries to defend himself, but Kumbang makes a deep cut in his chest, and as he loses so much blood, the crocodile becomes weaker and weaker. This provokes the fury of the alligators, who try to attack Kumbang, but are easily defeated by his gang. This seems to be the end of the alligators, but they realize that Raja is still alive, and carrying their leader, they leave. Seeing Kumbang's frightening strength, Arnab despairs, but Sang doesn't intend to give up and orders him and Tupai to summon all the animals to a meeting. The pair obey, and Sang decides to go to the surviving alligators to ask for their help. When he finds them, he tries to cross the lake and talk to the leader, but one of the alligators gets scared and attacks him. But suddenly a figure appears at high speed and captures the little deer, which disappears into the sky. Meanwhile, the animals gather and wait for Sang, but there is no sign of him anywhere. The animals begin to wonder if he is really going to help them, until Sang appears from the sky alongside Prakasa. The whole gang is frightened at the sight of the great eagle, but Sang explains that he has come to face Kumbang and the panther gang, alongside the forest animals. Although the chances are slim, the deer says that this is the animals' home, so they must defend it at all costs. These words resound throughout the forest, and the animals begin to see a leader in Sang, just as his mother was in the past. So they all agree to fight for the forest, and the deer begin to put together a plan of attack. Far away, Kumbang gets together with his panthers and tells them that tonight, they will all enjoy a feast, devouring all the animals in the area. As soon as the moon rises in the sky, the pack sets off to find their prey, only to find the forest apparently empty. After walking a little further, they find Arnab, around a campfire and holding a skewer for roasting carrots. The panthers start to approach the little rabbit, but suddenly Sang appears, wearing armor made of golden logs. He then orders the attack to begin, and so a spring under the ground pushes Arnab to safety, and several rabbits appear for battle. Although small, they join forces to throw fruit and stones at the panthers, who run to dodge the projectiles. However, on the other side, the monkeys do the same, and with Allore's help, they use the snake's elastic body to throw stones at their enemies. With targets being hit on both sides, Sang gives the command for the animals to attack head-on, throwing logs at the panthers. Finally, Prakasa uses his claws to carry a huge tree and drops it on Kumbang, who is crushed by it. Seeing this, the forest animals celebrate, believing that Kumbang has finally been eliminated. However, the leader of the panthers appears unharmed and orders his soldiers to attack Sang and his friends with all their might. The little deer doesn't allow himself to be frightened and sets off with the animals into battle, where the fate of the forest will be decided. Despite their bravery, the rabbits are easily defeated by the panthers, but Prakasa strikes back with a flying attack. Even so, the great eagle is captured by his opponents, while at the top of the forest, Sang flees from two more panthers. However, the deer is faster, and in a surprise attack, it leaps towards them and knocks them down with a powerful kick. The war intensifies, but Kumbang gets the upper hand, and if things continue like this, there won't be any other animals left in the forest. When all seems lost, the earth begins to shake, and then Gaja appears with his elephant friends. Although he has been an enemy of the forest animals, Gaja promises to help them get their home back. With this reinforcement, Sang and his army regain the upper hand, but the little deer receives a surprise attack and is thrown towards Kumbang and the rest of the gang. Tupai sees his apprentice in danger and tries to help him, but he is also stopped by the panthers and Sang finds himself alone, facing his end. However, Raja and his alligators, who are ready to have their revenge on Kumbang, come to the rescue. Now Sang has the three guardians at his side, Raja of the water, Gaja of the earth and Prakasa of the air. Thanks to this combination, the panthers think about retreating, but Kumbang won't accept defeat and orders them to attack once again. Even so, the panthers are no match for the combined abilities of Sang and the guardians. In addition, Queen Samet triggers the cannons to fire, launching green goo with ants, which, when they hit the panthers, start stinging them non-stop. Finally, only one panther remains and Prakasa takes personal charge of it, which was responsible for eliminating Gogok. In the same terrible way that his friend was eliminated, the great eagle presses the panther against the wall and crushes it, giving it no chance to defend itself. With his army decimated, Kumbang decides to take matters into his own hands and goes into battle alone. Thanks to his unusual strength and agility, the panther defeats the animals one by one, but Sang stops him with another kick. Kumbang soon recovers and tries to strike back with his claws, but Prakasa saves the little deer and takes it to the skies. Even so, the panther makes a huge leap and manages to reach the eagle, wounding Prakasa's leg with its sharp nails. Sang fights back and mustering all his strength in one blow, he hits Kumbang right in the eye with his paw. As soon as the panther is thrown to the ground, Gaja steps on its paws and throws it with his trunk, followed by Prakasa, who gives the panther several quick pecks. Finally, Raja grabs Kumbang with his sharp teeth and slams the panther to the ground, leaving him badly wounded. With no strength left to fight, Kumbang runs away, only to find himself trapped on the edge of a huge waterfall. The little deer doesn't want to let him get away and rushes over, challenging him to one last fight. Even though he is weak, Kumbang has enough strength to face Sang, and without difficulty, he manages to wrestle him to the ground and is about to devour the deer. However, Sang begins to bang his paw against the ground, causing a piece of his armor to break off. He then throws the broken piece into Kumbang's eye, which is blinded and unable to fight. Then Sang delivers the final blow and pushes the panther with a double kick, knocking him off the waterfall and into a pile of sharp rocks. However, the jump also causes the deer to fall off the waterfall, but at the last second he is saved by Tupai, who grabs him in the air using a vine. Finally, the threat of the panthers is no more and all the animals can live in peace in the forest. As well as having avenged his mother and friends, Sang is seen by everyone as a leader and he promises to bring peace and harmony to the island for many, many years to come. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.